Hello guys and welcome back to another episode of the Other Girls Club podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see I'm coming to you live from my bedroom today, so welcome to my bedroom. It's a solo episode today, so I've got full custody of you, and I'm kind of glad because I feel like I have so much to talk about. We're only like 2 weeks into the year, and I just feel like so much is happening. I have a lot of anxiety around a lot of subjects, which we'll get into, but then also I've seen some really great like pop culture moments as well. So I want to try and have a mix of not just being like, hey, I'm really scared about the world and anxious and I need to talk about it with someone, but also having a mix of like, hey, I've seen some really great films. So that's kind of what this whole episode is going to be. Because there is a lot going on in the world right now, and I do have a lot of anxiety around a lot of it, and I feel like I'm hopefully not the only one anyway. There's probably some of you that are feeling the same, so we will get into that, but I will start with some more light-hearted stuff. What have I been listening to this week? Guys, let me tell you, my blood pressure last year was so bad. I got myself so stressed out. I'm a very like stressy person, and so I basically realised I need to do something about my blood pressure. I need to just chill the fuck out, basically, right? Something that I really found helped me was listening to jazz music, because I am someone who, and you can literally see if you're watching in video format, right? I have my vinyl wall behind me. I had music playing constantly. Even when I lived with Dan, I used to just have my earphones in or music playing all the time. I can't not have music playing, right? But I do sometimes feel like it overstimulates me. So I was like, what do I do about this? So that's when I started making sure that I was listening to jazz music every day. In that point in the day where I was starting to feel quite anxious, but I still feel like I wanted to listen to some music, I would put on a good jazz playlist. I will link my favourite jazz playlist in the description of this podcast. It is a cracking playlist. I don't know what it is about jazz music. I don't understand the social science behind it, how it works, but jazz music is so calming. It does wonders for your blood pressure, and it's just so beautiful. So I'll link my favourite one in the description. But another artist that I've found has really helped me, who's a bit more modern, and I feel like I've got on the bandwagon really late on this one, because like people have been raving about him for years and I only started getting into him last year, so I'm very late on this one. But Fred again. I saw Fred again at Reading last year, and the vibe was just so fun. Like, he had such a good energy about him, and I've started to listen to him a lot more. And what I love about Fred again's music is it's so upbeat, and it's got such a good like rhythm and like pace to it. So like it's not, whereas jazz music calms me down, Fred again does give me that energy spurt that I want, but also it's not overstimulating. So I've been listening to a lot of Fred again. I'm really into Fred again right now. He's particularly really good for when I go on like my daily walks, because one of my New Year's resolutions, if you listen to the New Year's episode, was to leave the house every single day. And I'm proud to say that I have stuck to this. I have been making sure that I leave the house every day for movement, whether that is leaving for a workout, whether that is leaving just to go for like a little stroll. I've been doing really, really well. And honestly, it's been like working wonders for my mental health, just that changing environment. I'm also making sure that I'm not spending money when I'm leaving my house for these walks, because that's one thing that like that's one thing that I find is so easy to do in London. Like, yeah, you can leave the house and go out, but like you'll end up spending 50 quid just walking down the road. So I'm really trying to just leave the house and go for a stroll, take a drink with me, and not spend like a shit ton of money. So much easier said than done. But I put my little earphones on, I get my big fluffy coat on, I go for a little stroll, I'm listening to Fred again, I'm clearing my mind, I'm taking in the fresh air. Even though it is freezing cold air, it is fresh air nonetheless. And I'm just changing my environment and trying to just not dwell in my room. And in terms of what I've been reading right now, I have a little confession to make, and I really need you guys to hold me accountable here. I have not really been reading or even listening to audiobooks this year. I don't really know what's going on. I'm in a bit of a reading slump. Do you guys ever go through that? I feel like I only ever have 2 phases of reading, and it is I've read 2 or 3 books this week and I'm like blasting through them, or it's I haven't read anything in 3 months and I can't be asked to read. I'm literally either in like one of the 2 moods, and unfortunately I am in a reading slump. I started Bella Mackey's What a Way to Go before Christmas, and it's not even like I'm not enjoying it. I am really enjoying it. It's a really good book, but I'm just forgetting to tune in. I'm listening to it on audiobooks, and I'm just forgetting to like actually make the effort to listen to it. And it's such a low effort thing. All I've got to do is hit play, so I don't know why I'm really struggling to get that done. So next time I speak to you guys, I want you to hold me accountable, and I want you to comment. I want you to say, Sophie, you need to tell us how Bella Mackie's book is. I want to see that you've finished that Bella Mackie book, okay? Because she is really right, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I need to slap myself. I just need to bloody listen to it. That's all I've got to do. So I need you guys to hold me accountable on that one. Because Dan has given me another book recommendation. And I promised him that I will read it in February. But I need to make sure that I finish this one before I can start that one. So I don't have anything to report on the book side of things, I'm afraid. But I will do next time. I promise you. If you keep me accountable, we'll do it. Oh my god, how could I forget? New Ethel Cain album. Have we not spoke about that yet? Okay, let's talk about it now. So Ethel Cain released Perverts last week, which is her second studio album. If you guys know me, or if you remember my Spotify Unwrapped from last year, you will know that my top song of the year was Strangers by Ethel Cain. I generally think Preacher's Daughter by Ethel Cain is one of the best albums of the decade. Now that we are halfway through said decade, I feel like I can start making statements like that, but Preacher's Daughter is one of the best albums of this decade. I would 100% be happy to do a full episode, a bonus podcast episode, where we just dissect Preacher's Daughter as an album, because it is pure music perfection. The storytelling, how, like, sonically, the instruments she uses, everything about it is pure art. So... And Ethel Cain as an artist is just so interesting, because I feel like you get a lot of artists these days, or it's quite like a common thing to be like, oh yeah, I don't care about streams, or, you know, I just care about the art, blah, 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 blah. Like, everyone says that, right? But Ethel Cain, I think, truly does not care about the streams, and I feel like her new album is absolute proof of that. So the new album that's come out is called Perverts, and it is a largely instrumental album of drone music, a genre that I'm not really familiar, to be honest with you, or at least I wasn't until this album came out. The album is an hour and a half long. It is a long ass album. Like, I think one of the tracks on there is like 14 minutes. It is a long album, and Ethel Cain herself described the album as being like a sandbox that she could play around in. Now, the album itself, I don't dislike it. I like having it on. Obviously, it's largely instrumental. It's got a very haunting sound, so I've actually liked having it on while I'm just in the flat, maybe while I'm working. It's like a nice background like music to have, but it is worlds away from Preacher's Daughter and the production that was on Preacher's Daughter. And I think this is a conscious decision. One, because Hayden just loves drone music. And obviously this really was like an experimental album for her. And also she's made it very clear that she does not care about alienating people who listen to her music. Obviously a lot of people have discovered Ethel Cain and Preacher's Daughter through TikTok, and I think a couple of the sounds from it, like maybe like from Strangers, the song, have like gone viral, and that's how people have discovered Preacher's Daughter. And Ethel Cain is the kind of artist that just does not care about that stuff. Like, genuinely, truly. And I think it's so refreshing to have an artist who says they don't care about streams, they don't care about popularity, and they don't want to be popular, they don't want to be mainstream, and to actually mean it as well. And I think whether you like the album or not, I think you just have to give props to the fact that I think it is so bold and refreshing to see an artist approach an album with this mentality, and to not care about how many clicks it brings in for the label, or try and create a sound that goes viral for the label, because there are so many artists now and so many record companies and so many labels that push artists to make music with the purpose of it going viral, for the purpose of it to have a soundbite, And you can so tell when this has been done, like, it's so obvious. And the thing about TikTok, which by the way, TikTok might be being banned. We're 2 weeks into January, and that is one of the things that might be happening. You might be losing TikTok in America, which is will be a huge bloody development. But anyway, back to TikTok and the music industry. TikTok's impact on the music industry is both, I think, really great, and I think both really, really scary. And I'll give you an example of it being really great. And I think for me, the best example of it having a really positive impact on the music industry is with Ray. I think this is a phenomenal example of TikTok and social media platforms giving the power to the people, and the people deciding what is great, and the people deciding what we're going to platform and what's going to be popular, what's going to be successful. Because Ray, if you don't know the story of Ray, let me give you a little bit of a backstory. We know Ray now as being like an R&B jazz classic singer, and that's kind of like the genre that she creates music in now. Ray has absolutely rocketed to success over the last few years, but she has been in the industry for a very, very long time. But she was stuck in this contract with, who was it? Who was the record label? Let me have a look. I've got a feeling it's Sony, but let me double check. Maybe it was Polydor, actually. It was Polydor. So Ray was signed to Polydor Records, and you might think that you haven't heard of Ray and that she's just popped up out of nowhere. But no, Ray has been in the industry for a very long time, and she was creating a lot of dance tracks, or she was a vocal feature on a lot of dance tracks. Like you might know You Don't Know Me. What other ones are there? You Don't Know Me and By Your Side are like two of the biggest ones, I guess. And Polydor were telling her, no, you're not an album artist. Like, you are not an artist that people are going to buy into and listen to a whole album, and the content is not good enough for it to be a whole album, which is absolutely insane as we know now. But thanks to TikTok, Ray ended up going viral on TikTok, I think with the song Escapism. She got her story out there of what she was experiencing with Polydor Records, and that gave her the freedom to get out of this contract, become an independent artist, and release what is the Ray album called, which by the way, if you haven't listened to, you need to listen to it. My 21st Century Blues. I saw this album live twice with an orchestra, and it is one of the most powerful things I've ever heard in my entire life. She's such a sensational artist with so much talent and so much promise, and such a clear, refined artistry, I think, that it's absolutely crazy to me that Polydor were not seeing the potential in Ray. But anyway, if Ray had not gone viral on TikTok, if she had not been able to connect to her audience and get her story to her audience and have her connect like that, she could still be with Polydor releasing dance tracks for the rest of her career. She might have never been able to get an album out. And that is, I think, one really good example of the power of TikTok and the people. But then also there is the other side of things where music is now almost being produced with the intention of it going viral, and with the intention of, oh, you've got to create like a soundbite in a song that can be used to go viral and to make TikToks with, and, you know, create that social media buzz. And I think there are so many, I mean, not to be shady, but there are so many artists now. I hear some music now and I think, this TikTok ass music, like what the hell is this? You know, and I just think it's so sad. And this is before we even get into the implications of AI and how social media has really sped up the AI experience. Guys, I'm so scared of AI. I always have been. I know that like AI has been a part of our technology for actually a really long time. And I didn't even realize that AI is used in some of the things that I've been using for years, like some of my editing software and stuff like that. But the way that we were using AI a few years ago and the way that we are using AI now seems to have just flipped a switch overnight. And here are the things that scare me about AI, right? One, being able to generate images that are just not false. Particularly what scares me is thinking about the protection of children and women. I'm thinking back to last year. Do you guys remember when Taylor Swift had that image of her generated at a football game and it was like really sexually quite violent? Like, that's really scary. There are companies that have been using AI so that they don't have to work with influencers, which one scares me because girl, that's my whole career. But two, also so that they don't have to work with inclusive influencers, so that they don't have to work with black creators, they don't have to work with disabled creators. And it's like, I'm sorry, did I just step into an alternate universe where this is okay? AI really, really scares me. And it scares me just how many people, like the general population, are now using things like Chat GBT and are using AI generated images without a care in the world. And we're just doing it and it's becoming like a part of our norm. And I think it is a really nuanced discussion. And I think it's important for me to kind of acknowledge as well that obviously I am a creative and I don't want to see AI being overused in the creative industry because I think it impacts art for the negative. And I wholeheartedly believe that art can never, ever, ever be replaced by AI. There are certain pieces of art that sometimes I look at or experience and I think AI could never ever do that. Like I saw a TikTok the other day, ironically, slagging off TikTok. Let me find it. This was it. So art cannot be made by a robot. Tchaikovsky, I'm really sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Tchaikovsky lost his sister while he was writing The Nutcracker. He wrote it in her memory and he put his grief into all of his work on this one piece. Over 100 years later, you can still hear his pain in the music. Art as an expression of what is to be human, a confirmation that someone else has felt this way before. AI cannot make art, it produces content. That sums up for me how I feel about AI being used to make content. You're not making art. Like, I think it can simplify some work practices, and I think it can sometimes help alleviate the load of workers to put their energy towards things that it deserves more human contact, but it can never ever replace art. And I think really the problem is that people in the workforce are too overworked. They are got way too much on their plate that we're having to delegate some of the tasks to AI. And you might think, oh yeah, that's good. Like, you know, we can just give some of the tasks to AI, like writing emails and writing lists and formulating things and condensing things. And there's like two thoughts that I go off into here. One of them is, yeah, but I think we just need to reassess our work-life balance. And that sounds really corny, but I do think we need to reassess how much stress and work and pressure we are putting on people so that they don't then turn to AI to do their job for them. Because it's all well and good me sitting here slagging off AI, but the reason why so many everyday people are using it in the workforce is because people are overworked. People have got way too much going on. And then also the environmental impact. Obviously we've got the wildfires going on in LA right now. Is that just not the earth absolutely screaming at us? And I know a lot of people don't want to hear about the climate crisis. And I know that when you talk about things like our impact on the climate crisis, rightfully people get frustrated and say, yeah, but what about all the billionaires, you know, and what about their impact on the climate crisis? And I totally get that. As an everyday person, if I'm sitting there and I'm drinking my lovely Diet Coke and I've got a paper straw and it crumbles in my mouth, and I sit there and I think about billionaire private jet usage, and it pisses me the fuck off. It really does. But also then we realistically cannot deny the spike in the use of AI and Chat GBT is having on the data centers and the environment. There's this creator on Instagram who sums things up really simply for people, and she kind of basically explained AI's impact on the environment and how it basically has such a detrimental impact on the environment, because I didn't understand it at first. I was like, how can AI impact the environment with water usage and stuff like that? Because I didn't really understand how data centers work, sorry. So I will leave that in the description here so you can go away and try to understand that a bit better, because she will sum it up better than I think I ever could. But it's crazy how many more like everyday people are starting to use Chat GBT. Like, my family now use it. I'm like, what? How do you know what Chat GBT is? And it's really helpful for them, yes, but I think you've got so many people who are using it and just have absolutely no idea of the impact that it is having, or not only on the environment, but for me, I worry about how it's impacting our brains using it more. And I know that probably sounds really dramatic, and I feel like when my parents used to be like, oh, watching all those screens and being on that phone, it's gonna turn your eyes square. That's what I feel like. That is generally what I feel like when I say AI is making our brains lazy. Chat GBT is making our brains lazy, and it really scares me. Like, I saw someone opened up a conversation about this on Twitter the other day, and I really appreciate that it was quite like a nuanced, honest conversation. But there were people on there admitting to, oh yeah, I use Chat GBT to do my shopping list, my grocery list. And I can't get my head around that. And I do worry if we're leaning on Chat GBT for these very basic things that we should be able to do, what kind of an impact is that going to have on our brains long term? Because we are living in a world now where everything is becoming more convenient, and that's nothing new. We've been living in a world of convenience for a very, very long time. Look at the way our diets have changed in the last 50 years. Look at the way our work schedules have changed over the last 50 years. Like the way that we communicate, everything. We don't go to the movies anymore. We stream things at home, you know, we don't cook as much. It's nothing new that as a society we are leaning more and more into convenience. That is nothing new. But I do worry the rate at which Chat GBT is just going to absolutely accelerate this. Because your brain and your mind are like a muscle, and if you are constantly just passing off these everyday tasks that you used to do without a problem to Chat GBT, what kind of an impact is that going to have long term? And I just really worry that as we are allowing ourselves to lean more and more into convenience and to allow technology like Chat GBT to help us out with our everyday tasks, what kind of an impact is that going to have on our ability to use and exercise our brains and our minds? And I think particularly when we are living in a very tumultuous time socially and politically, we need to, I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but we need to stay more woke than ever. I know that whole term has been co-opted, but it's more important than ever that we are not allowing our brains and our minds to fall to convenience. And it's so funny because I started this conversation talking about the Ethel Cain album, and then I've just gone on this whole rant about TikTok, about ChatGPT, about AI, but it's all connected. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You did not. Ethel Cain, AI, ChatGPT, and Elon Musk are all connected. But they really are. And unfortunately, the solution is going to be reassessing our relationship with work and reassessing capitalism. But unfortunately, I just do not think that will ever happen. Because the reason why people are using ChatGPT so much, well, part of the reason is because people have too much to do. I know some of my friends who are not creatives and work more traditional office jobs. Like, it's so helpful for them in their workload, and it really helps take the load off of them. And you think, like, you can't argue with that. Like, as someone who has a very privileged job and who lives in a very privileged position, I can't argue with that, you know? Like, yeah, it probably makes your life a hell of a lot easier. So it's a sticky one still, isn't it? It's kind of how I feel about AI. Kind of just went on this whole half an hour rant about ChatGPT and the music industry and AI, and it could just be summed up as sticky one still, isn't it? But it is a sticky one still, isn't it? But while we're talking about social media platforms and what I think, well, by the way, sorry, let me circle back to Ethel Cain, an amazing artist who is taking creative risks and is not afraid to alienate a fan base and is making art because she wants to create it. What an artist. What a woman. Phenomenal. Mwah. Ethel Cain, I fucking love you. But Elon Musk, you dirty ass bitch, let's get on to you. Elon Musk fucking scares me, man. When did Elon Musk suddenly become supreme leader of the fucking world? I feel like he used to just be this billionaire that I knew about, and then all of a sudden, he's getting himself involved in UK politics. Like, fuck off. Sometimes I see a news story and it's like, Elon Musk has an opinion about this, and I think, just fuck off. Just fuck off. You know? Like, for the love of all things holy, why are you getting involved in UK politics? With all due respect, you're not invited. Go away. And we just cannot allow billionaires like Elon Musk to keep buying their way into politics. It really, really scares me. And I went on a huge rant about this on Instagram around the time Trump was elected, because your politicians and the people that go to, well, for us in the UK Parliament, are meant to be there to represent you. They're meant to represent you and your communities. But unfortunately, we are in this space, and it's absolutely nothing new, especially with God England's history. We are in this space where people can just buy their way into politics, and the impact that it has on everyday people is absolutely terrifying. Like, if Elon Musk gets involved with the Reform Party, and if Elon Musk does donate that huge sum of money to Nigel Farage will be able to buy his way into being Prime Minister. I think it's going to happen anyway. I genuinely think Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister one day. I absolutely don't want him to be. It really scares me, the idea of him being Prime Minister, because we are living in a time where more than ever, people are voting for personality, and personality politics has become more prevalent than ever. I mean, look at Donald Trump. There are so many people that, well, a lot of people in America voted for Donald Trump because they thought he would help the economy. Okay. Which I can't, man. If you look at Donald Trump and you genuinely think he has you, your family, and your wallet's best interest at heart, I do not know what to tell you. That man is a billionaire who only has himself, and other billionaires' interests at heart. That's all he cares about. He does not care about the economic safety and security of the everyday person. And then it's the same over here in the UK as well. Nigel Farage does not represent the common man. He does not represent the everyday working man. Please, piss off. He does not care about you. But unfortunately, people just like him. And you hear that phrase a lot where people are like, oh, I don't know what it is about him. I just like him. I just like him. And it's a really like covert way of speaking, because I don't understand how you can look at men like Nigel Farage and Donald Trump and just not see men who are, first of all, completely self-indulged, but also the fact that you can just deny they are outright racist. And when people say things like, oh, I don't know why, I just like him, what they mean is they align with him on that. That's what they mean, and they don't want to say it. And unfortunately, we are moving more and more into a space where it is becoming more socially acceptable to just say, yeah, they're racist and I'm voting for them. And I think, unfortunately, the Trump administration getting into power is just more of a proof that we are currently living through a pendulum swing. I feel like 2020 was almost like the peak of the woke brigade, and I'm doing woke in quotation marks for audio listeners there. And I feel like because of that huge left-wing pendulum swing, we are now going back the complete opposite way, and we are about to see... I think, unfortunately, we are about to see levels of right-wing rise that we have not seen in a very, very long time. And it's going to be very, very hard to combat misinformation and also like fascist agenda when you have got people like Elon Musk that are just buying up, first of all of our social media apps, all of our news outlets, all of these different things that get information out to the public. When you have these billionaires who own all of these social media apps and these ways of getting content and information out to the public, it is so hard to then combat misinformation. And that's why absolutely I think we do need to have more heat on Elon Musk. There are a lot of people who don't really know very much about him, or for some weird reason, there are a lot of people that really like him. And when it really comes down to it, the bare fucking bones of it is, this man is using his wealth to platform white supremacy and fascism and right-wing agenda into the mainstream population. And it has been happening for a while, and it is just ramping and ramping up to now it is happening that he's buying his way and his influence and his power into the White House. And if that does not scare people, I don't know what to fucking say. The fact that we live in a society, and this is nothing new, but we are just seeing it on a more dramatic and I think maybe more 3D scale because of the way our world works now with social media and stuff. But is it not absolutely terrifying that we have such little respect for something like politics, that we can just buy our way into it, and we can just buy our way into platforming right-wing agenda? And these people have such little respect for you and what you go through in your everyday lives that they do not care. You are just a pawn for their power. They do not give a shit. Honestly, it just really, really disgusts me, on a personal level. As someone who has been interested in politics since I was quite young, and someone who is interested in societal change and creating change, it really, honestly, truly disgusts me that we have such influential, wealthy people in our society who can just do that. It makes me really mad. On the serious, I'm not even fucking joking now. It just pisses me off. The amount of hardworking people there is, not just in this country, but around the world, that are not getting the support that they deserved, who their bills keep going up. They can't pay their rent. It's getting more expensive to feed their kids. A lot of them are using food banks. And are we going to address the cost of living crisis? No, of course we're not. We're going to do what we've always done, and we're going to blame the immigrants. We're going to blame trans people. It's trans people and non-binary people's fault that you can't pay your bills, by the way. Every other fucking headline I read, it's non-binary athlete wins, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Do you know how much my council tax is? Do you know how much my energy bills are? I don't give a shit if there is an athlete going by they, them. I don't care. I don't care. You want me to believe that there are people in this country that can't feed their kids because there are refugees coming over on boats. You want me to believe that's the reason? No one puts themselves or their children in that position unless they absolutely have to. But you know the craziest fucking part? It actually works. It actually works for a good percentage of people. There are so many people who are struggling in this country right now, and they're taught who to hate, they're taught who the problem is, and it bloody works. But hey, the immigrant family that live down the road aren't the reason you can't pay your bills. It's because of the billionaires that own the energy companies. It's because of the politicians who won't address the cost of living crisis. But no, unfortunately, you give the people a real good enemy and they will be completely blind to who is causing the problems in their life. I actually need to calm down. I wasn't even intending on talking about any of this, but I've really stressed myself out now. I wasn't even intending on talking about any of this, but now I've really got myself on the roll and I've really stressed myself out. But I am really scared. I am really scared about the future of this country and also the US and just around the world in general. I think things are really, really scary right now. And look, I would love to be wrong. Okay, let's talk about something else to finish this podcast up because I feel like I've just really stressed myself out. I'm sorry if I've stressed you out. That was not my intention of this podcast. I wasn't even going to talk about any of that. I had Dan over for dinner last night, and first of all, we had dinner, I cooked it in the air fryer. Hey guys, I'm in love with air fryers. I think they could be the best thing that has ever been created. I can't believe they were invented in like 2005. That's like 20 years I've been on this planet. And I could have had an air fryer and I've not had an air fryer. I even remember a few years ago, my parents bought me one and I was like, lol, what am I, 30? I don't need an air fryer. Well, lo and behold, I'm 28 now and I want a damn air fryer. I got one for Christmas. It's changed my bloody life. I've never eaten so good in my life. Anyway, I made dinner for Dan in the air fryer. Like beautiful salmon with sun-dried pesto is my favourite thing to make. And garlic with, no, sorry, it was mushrooms with garlic and cheese stuffed in it. Beautiful. We had a really good chat about Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips because it's such an interesting topic to me, like this sudden extremities within OnlyFans and sex work, and I want to do a whole podcast episode where I speak about this, and I feel like I want to bring someone on who could maybe bring like a different opinion to me, or not even a different opinion but just more of like a what is the word, informed or like experience with the OnlyFans side of the internet, because I'm not an OnlyFans person. Like I can't speak from the experience of being a sex worker or of creating OnlyFans content, so it would be really good to do an episode with someone who knows a bit more about that, but I'll see. But yeah, we had a conversation about that because Bonnie Blue yesterday announced that she had broken the record and slept with 1,057 guys in a day. I can't even begin to conceptualize that many people, let alone sleeping with that many people. And this is not me slut shaming, this is just me absolutely mind boggled at the logistics behind that. And I have my own opinions on the whole situation, which I don't think are too different to the general consensus, but consensus? Is that how you say that? General consensus, yes, that's how you say that. I don't think my opinions are too different to the general consensus on the whole topic, but it does really scare me, and it does really scare me the impact that it's having on women and the way that men are being taught to view women more than ever, because she's like propositioning herself as like educating men about sex, and it's like, no, you're not, girl. Like, that's crazy. But I want to do a whole podcast episode where I talk about that. But talking about sex, right? Craziest way to open up a new segue. Talking about sex, I saw Baby Girl in the cinema last weekend. Oh my god, what a treat it was. So I took myself to the Everyman, took myself on a little solo date. I had a nice pesto pizza before the movie started. If you guys have never been to an Everyman, it's basically like these like bougie cinema with like sofas and like armchairs instead of like ordinary chairs, and they have like full menus in there where you can order drinks, milkshakes, like coffees, food, and they like bring it all into you in the cinema. And they do it really, really well, because basically it is the only time I will get to the cinema early. And when I say early, I mean on time, because they will stop bringing the food in once the film starts. So you can order stuff once the film starts, but you have to go outside to collect it, which is fair enough because like you don't want to disturb the movie for everyone. But I got there early, I had my little pesto pizza. I had a Prosecco Bucks Fizz thing, but it had candy floss on top and then you put it in. That was really fun. That was really, really nice. So I've not been drinking a lot, so that one drink got me a little bit tipsy. I was a little bit buzzed, nice and lightly buzzed. So I was nice and lightly buzzed, and I locked in to watch Nicole Kidman get fingered to tears, and it was just brilliant. Like, that's what I go to the cinema for, you know? But the film was so hot. Like, so hot. I knew it was going to be sexy. I wasn't originally going to see it. And then I saw some of the clips, and I was like, ooh, this could be a good time, actually. So I'm glad that I went and saw it. I did really enjoy it. And I thought it was a really good exploration of sex and also consent, and also more submissive and dom type relationships. And I think one thing that I really appreciated about the film is, especially towards the earlier part of the film, like Nicole, so like general sort of like plot, no spoilers, I'll make this spoiler free. Nicole Kidman is married, been married to her husband for like nearly 20 years, and she's never had an orgasm with him. But, so they show her the film literally opens with her riding her husband and faking an orgasm, and then she leaves the room, and she basically gets off to like really hardcore like porn, and she's clearly got a bit of like a sub kink, like she wants to be dominated, right? Then she goes into work the next day. And she sees one of the new interns there, who's this like pretty little white boy who has, by the way, the hottest chain. It reminded me of Connell from Normal People. Anyway, she sees him on the street before she goes into work, and he basically controls this dog. Like, this woman loses control of her dog, and he commands it, and it listens to him. And she's like, Loki, wanna be that dog? She's like, what if I was that dog though? And that's kind of the plot of the whole film, basically. But I really enjoyed it, especially the earlier scenes just after that, where they've started having an affair and they're trying to work out what is it actually that she wants. What do they want from this dynamic, from this relationship? Because she cannot vocalize her needs and her desires, because clearly it's been so like suppressed in her for so long. And I think that is really just an interesting topic to explore, because she is, yes, like a powerful woman who owns her own company and is clearly in very control in her life. But when it comes to this topic of desire and sexuality, she cannot vocalize what it is that she wants. And I think that's true for like a lot of women. And it was really nice to see this kind of like playful awkwardness displayed on screen. And I'll leave it spoiler free because the film has not long come out, and I know you guys are probably going to want to go see it, so I'll leave it spoiler free. But it was really hot, and I thought the ending was it was a good ending, I think, for all the characters. But yeah, definitely go see it if you can. I did really enjoy it. Oh, and obviously I spoke about Nosferatu in one of the last episodes, but I spoke to Dan last night about how I think there is going to be a rise in gothic horror. Just looking at the way the culture is right now, and also I feel like the movies are starting to come back. I'm reluctant to say that like cinema is back, because I still think there are a lot of problems. With the film industry. One in particular that is like really annoying me, and I really noticed it when I went to see Mufasa the other night, just from watching the trailers, because I don't have kids, right? I don't spend any time with children, so I don't really know what kids TV and kids film looks like these days. And I went to go see Mufasa, which I actually did quite enjoy, by the way, but all of the trailers were like really jarring, and I noticed that like a lot of the films that are being made specifically as well for kids these days are remakes, and they are things that these companies already own the intellectual property to. Like, we're not seeing new original stories, and I think that's really, really sad, but also quite a shame for storytelling, and also quite a shame for the industry, because it means what is happening to the next generation of writers and storytellers and, you know, showrunners. Like, they're doing a live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't How to Train Your Dragon come out like not that long ago? And I think they're filming a live action remake of Moana, and didn't that also not come out that long ago? I just don't understand, other than saving money and not taking a risk creatively and financially, wanting to make a safe financial bet for a film. What is the point in this? what is the point in doing this? So that's why I'm really going to try and make an effort this year. I'm kind of in like my cinephile era, especially in the winter where like I'm not really going out and doing much else. If I'm going out, I'm going to the cinema. I think I'm going to get a Cineworld card by the way, guys, because I'm going to the cinema a lot and I know some of you recommended that I get one, so I might get it and I'll let you know whether it's worth the money. But I am going to try and make an effort this year to watch more films outside of just like the big blockbusters that are recommended. And hey, like, this is not me slagging off and this is not me saying that there's anything like wrong with big blockbusters. Like Wicked was one of my favourite films last year. I thought it was so well done. I thought like the production of it was phenomenal, the acting, the talent, phenomenal, and also the story that they told. Obviously, you know, it's been one of the biggest shows on Broadway for like a really long time, but also just the way they told that story and the way they made it current for the social political climate, absolutely adored Wicked. Wicked was one of my favourite films of last year. So this is not me saying that there's something inherently wrong with big blockbusters, but I do want to make sure that I go see like a different range of films this year. I might go see A Real Pain if there's any screenings of it in my local cinema this weekend, which has got, what's his name? The guy who was in Home Alone, Kerry Culkin? I don't really know him. And then also Jesse Eisenberg. I might go try and see that this weekend, so I'll let you know my thoughts on that. But oh my god, the rise in Gothic horror, which I was telling you about, I think. But yeah, I was talking down last night and I said I think there's going to be a big rise in Gothic horror because obviously we've had Nosferatu, which has come out, which by the way, phenomenal film. You should absolutely go see it. And I think because Nosferatu has done so well. Yeah, so Nosferatu had a budget of $50 million and it's already made 135 million worldwide, which is really, really good for a horror and particularly for a Gothic horror as well. And I think we are about to see a rise in Gothic horror because of the success of that. It shows there is a market there. But I'm also thinking of the context of which Gothic horror sits in and the position that Gothic horror was wrote in and what it says about the time period. Because something I was explaining to Dan last night, because he knows nothing about Nosferatu, is Nosferatu is an embodiment of all of the Victorian fears that they had around women's desires and women's urges. And it comes from this Victorian fear of being afraid of sexuality, and particularly women's sexuality, and this fear of the grotesque. And I think because we are seeing a rise in particularly tradwife culture, but also just general right-wing content, like every corner of the internet that you look right now has got some fraction of right-wing entertainment in it. And with so much of that polluting the media, there is also going to be this, I think, resurgence in this fear of the desire and fear of the grotesque, which is what the position of Nosferatu was wrote from. Well, also it ripped off Dracula, but you know, that's for another time and place. And while you're breeding this environment for all of these ideals and these fears, you're also going to have this locked-in audience of young women like myself who have grown up being really interested in the, you know, in the supernatural, in horror, in vampires. And we are going to be that locked in audience who is going to be the ones making films like Nosferatu and Frankenstein, the big successes that they're going to be. So I think this rise in Gothic horror will be a counter response to the rise in tradwife culture. And I think with Twilight, it really changed the way people saw vampires. Like, vampires became, like, sexy. And it became, like, socially acceptable to, like, be into that and to like that. Like, so many girls love Twilight, and that's not weird. But with traditional values and conservatism coming more to the forefront of society and culture, it is going to turn more into the grotesque. And maybe an exploration of this in film will be a resurgence in Gothic horror. And it will be desire becoming more grotesque and not sexy in the way that it was in Twilight, which was more of a sex positive era, ironically, than we're in today. I mean, obviously I'm not excited for a rise in tradwife culture, but I love Gothic horror, so I would be very excited to see a resurgence of Gothic horror. I think it's such an interesting genre, and I think when it's done right, like Robert Eggers did it in Nosferatu, it can be so beautifully displayed on film as well, and I think it would be a big win for the film industry, and particularly for horror, which has always been a very, very underappreciated genre. And do you know what? I think that's going to be it for me today, guys, because I feel like I have just like ranted and raved and really gone off on one today. So I'm sorry if this was a little bit too much for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it didn't stress you out. I hope it just let you know that, yeah, other people are fucking scared of the way things are going right now, and things are becoming more scary and more extreme, and it feels like right wing is on the rise absolutely everywhere, particularly within our social media sites. But just know that this will always be a safe space for a counterculture for that. But I hope you stay safe, take care of yourself. I'm really looking forward to next week's episode. We have an amazing guest on, and he's going to be a very positive force for the podcast, shall we say. I don't know if that's giving it away who it is, but he's just such a ray of light, and I'm so excited to have him on the podcast. But yeah, thank you for listening, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.